Hello everyone, my name is Troy, and today I'll be going over how I landed my first software development internship. So just to debrief, this video is more just to get my story out there. I just want to share my story of how I landed my first internship, and at the end I'll give some advice on things I would do differently and things I would work on if I were to do this again. Because I know in this economy it is quite a challenging market. So hopefully this video serves as kind of a guide to navigate your first recruitment cycle as a college student trying to find your first internship. Take everything I say with a grain of salt because this is very anecdotal evidence and might not work for everyone. So in terms of the structure of this video, first I will go over my stats, my graph, basically how many applications I did. Then I'll go over basically my story, some background information about me, and then I'll go over my resume a little bit and then give you some tips and things I would do differently. All right, so here's the pure stats for the Gen Z brain rotters. Maybe put out some stuff, Subway Surfers, get them stimulated, you know what I'm saying? All right, anyways, let's get into like the pure stats here. Just to debrief, this was across 2 semesters. Basically, I looked for internships in 2 semester cycles. So I started looking for January internships and I actually couldn't find it. So these numbers are also a little higher than hopefully you need. A lot of the applications, to debrief, a lot of the applications were like for one company, but they had like 20, like maybe 15 SWE roles or software roles, and then I just applied to all of them. So most of my applications here were pure dev roles. I would say about 60% of the 500 were just pure software developing or software engineering, and then about 30% of them were testing roles, so either QA or software engineering or software developing in test. Those were a little less desirable for me. They just don't really interest me as much. And then 10% were other like random tech stuff that I found that just had like software in the name, like probably some IT thing where you just like, I don't know, fix PowerPoints for people. I'm glad I didn't get any interviews or any offers for that. So about 80% of my applications were local, I would say, or maybe 60% were local and then 20% were like across Canada. I would say maybe like 15% was US roles and then maybe 2% of the roles were international. So I got quite a few interviews before I got my first offer, and I got quite a few OAs before I got my first offer. I would say it definitely demotivated me. I got about 10 interviews and 20 OAs, and I would say, okay, the most of my interviews were small companies, like local companies around my area, so they were mostly behavioral, at best 1 or 2 technicals, and then all the OAs were really large companies that I guess the ATS really scanned something they like and they gave me the OA, and I guess either I didn't do that well or my resume actually got hand reviewed and got thrown out, so most of my OAs were bad. But 1 OA got through from a very large company, and I'm really happy about that because that was my first semester applying for internships, and I got a really good interview. I fucking bombed that interview. So, and then I got 1 second round interview. All the other ones were just pure reject, which was really demotivating. Got 1 second interview that converted into an offer, and now I'm accepting. So I'll be starting an 8-month internship in Vancouver. It's a mid-sized cybersecurity company, and I'm really happy about it. Like I said, I haven't even started that internship, so I really don't know too much. So to give you a little backstory of how I got into software engineering and why I want to pursue it. So in my last year of high school, I knew about software engineering and computer science as a career, but I wasn't too interested. I didn't really know too much about it. I was debating between that and finance. The reason why I was into it, because I probably just Googled it and it's like, oh look, I make a lot of money, which is shallow. But I mean, let's be honest, I think 80% of the people in this industry kind of see that as like one of the main factors. I mean, I did some programming classes in high school, and then I basically couldn't really decide, so I'm doing a business and computer science combined major at the University of British Columbia. What I would describe it is essentially a computer science degree with business electives, but I think most of the people in my degree are gunning for the tech industry. In my first year, I knew I wanted to get an internship. I knew that was something to like pursue and something that'll set you up for career success. So I applied to first year internships when I was, in first year, and I really only gunned for like the super big names. I knew I really didn't have much of a chance because my resume was pretty much dog shit. Like I had like one Python project from high school and then still had like high school experiences. Didn't really think much of it, just wanted to get into the process of applying. Obviously got 0 emails. Like I don't even think I got much rejection emails. It was just like a ghost town. Yeah, that resume is really shit. So first year summer, I didn't do any internships. I just traveled, did some summer courses. And then I applied to co-op program at the start of second year. Hopefully, I think US schools have this, but it's basically a program to help you land internships, or I guess co-ops, easier. They help you try to like pair up with companies. But in reality, I think the value it gives you is the job board, which basically gives you exclusive access to some companies because they only open their roles to co-op students. So a lot of the roles that I applied to were through co-op. It's kind of government sponsored, so they have more of an incentive to hire co-op students. But I think most of my advice here would apply to both co-ops and internships. So as I mentioned, the first recruitment cycle, or the first co-op positions or internship positions I was looking for, was January roles. In September, October, I was super motivated. I did quite a few hackathons, and I, just tried to improve my skills, and I was taking more CS courses, so I had more of a knowledge, hopefully jumping into interviews. But as you can see there, I landed quite a few first interviews in my first semester. I applied to about maybe 300 companies in my first semester. I landed about maybe 5 or 6 interviews with one really big company, basically Fang, like similar level to like Fang or Manga, they call it now. The interviews went pretty poorly, I would say, overall. Like I was really excited to get these opportunities. But yeah, most of these interviews were behavioral interviews. I really wasn't prepared for the behavioral sides. I feel like behavioral interviews are something you kind of just have to get experience with and practice. So in the start, I was actually really bad with interviews. I was like really stuck up in like trying to like be genuine, but be like I was kind of putting up an act, and I wasn't comfortable in that environment. A lot of the behavioral interviews, I was like reciting, like if they said tell me about yourself, I'm like reciting exactly a script, so I sound like a robot, and just really didn't build rapport with much of the interviewers. So that's like part of the reason why I got rejected from most of these companies in first semester. I think, I never really know. I emailed them, they're just like, oh, we just found another candidate. Who knows? I mean, that was really demotivating, getting rejections from these interviews, from these like really great opportunities. But I kept applying. And it really sucked when I couldn't land an internship for January roles, because I was kind of planning my academic schedule around it, and I registered for classes, but I didn't really think I was going to go to those classes. So I ended up, right now, actually, I'm taking the classes that I kind of half-assed my schedule last time, though it worked out and my schedule's not too bad. A takeaway from this is definitely improve your behavioral skills. I guess for my technical skills, technical interview, I actually did get 2 technical interviews I would say one traditional. Most of the technical interviews are just technical questions they have for your resume, basically just to like prove that you actually did the things that you did. So a lot of it was like object-oriented programming with like Java and things like that. It wasn't too hard, the technical questions. When I got my technical interview and it was with the large company, like the really large company, I prepared a lot. So I think in my first semester I did about 50 LeetCode questions, which was, a decent bit. I mean, not too much, but like most of it was just the blind 75 or like the NeetCode 150. Yeah, I think that really helped me with my interviewing experience. Well, not just interviewing experience, but like data structures and algorithm skills. I don't know, I'm just rambling, but I'm just saying that I learned quite a few LeetCode, I was a LeetCode in a little bit in first semester, which I think helped me in my technical interview with the company that I accepted. So when I didn't get my January role, I started applying to summer positions, and I knew that summer positions were really competitive, so I started applying early. What I did was in my first semester, I interviewed for about 6 companies, and one of them was simply just an HR screening. And I think during that HR screening, it was pretty good. Like I got along with the recruiter quite well, so I thought she like passed me, right? But I mean, I got rejected. So then when I was started applying for summer internships, I emailed her, just cold emailed her, and I actually emailed quite a few other recruiters that I had in the past, that I interviewed with in the past. I just emailed just saying like simply, hey, I'm looking for summer roles. Here's my updated resume. And so that recruiter got back to me and set up a technical interview with the engineering manager at this company. And I was really happy about that. So I did my technical interview. I was really nervous leading up to it because it's a role that I I really wanted. In terms of preparation, I didn't really do much preparation. I got pretty lazy and I had school in the way, but I did some LeetCode questions and kind of refined my interviewing questions. But I do the interview and it goes really well, and I think the way I approached this interview was different from the other ones. The interviews in the past, I kind of got so nervous, it psyched me out. So with this technical interview, I answered the questions like a lot more casually. But yeah, so basically this technical interview was actually quite short. It started with general questions about my resume, about my technical experiences. And then he asked me like a critical thinking question, which is kind of like a brain teaser, which was pretty interesting. I managed to solve that with a little bit of help, talking through my thought process the whole time, which I think he really liked. And then he got to me to a coding question, like a LeetCode easy, and I mean it was quite an easy question, but the way I was explaining myself and really stood out to the employer. So I think that's what really convinced them, hopefully, that I'm a strong hire. And yeah, like 3 days later, I get an email from the HR recruiter and got a role, and I was really happy because I feel like I worked pretty hard. So yeah, that's the story. Okay, now I'm gonna go over my resume, and feel free to give me tips because this is in no means a perfect resume. So we have the name at the top, and then I have my email, my LinkedIn, and my GitHub hyperlinked. So if you click it, you can go to it. I have my school, UBC. I have my expected graduation in May 2026, my GPA, my courses, my relevant courses, my technical skills. Don't quiz me on these because I don't know half. No, I'm joking. If any employer looks at this, I know all of these technologies. Hire me. Okay. All right. So I recently added, this intern because I landed it. So I'm just going to put it on my resume for now. But I guess this was not on my resume beforehand. So these two experiences here, these two student software developer clubs. Basically, what I did was there were some clubs at my school, and they were offering software developer like positions just to like help with small club stuff. So yeah, that's what I've been doing during the school year, just to get some more experience. But if I'm gonna be honest, it's very small scale projects that really. They were more like personal projects rather than like a team. Yeah, it wasn't too valuable, and honestly, a lot of the interviewers didn't really ask me ask about these positions. Yeah, they weren't really interested in it. But I would say that they probably like in terms of the ATS scanning, they helped. So in terms of resume value, I think it's definitely a good option if you don't have any other experience to look for clubs in your school to apply to some like software developer roles for that club. But here we have the projects, which I think is the most important part if you're looking for your first internship, and I think it helped me a lot with the interviews and during the interviews. So here I have 2 hackathon projects and 1 course project. Mindful Motion, I think, added the most resume value to my resume. Like almost I would say 80% of my interviewers, they ask me about this project. So if you're looking to add more value to your resume, hackathons are a great way, and they only take a weekend. Like I'm a lazy person. I don't like spending so long on a project. So hackathons are great, 1 weekend, you're out, make a decent project, you have a resume point, great. Then I have an interest in other section, which I think kind of rounds me out as a person. Have some like business stuff, golf, table tennis. I mean, yeah, whatever. Just the stuff that I'm interested in. But yeah, here's my resume. Like honestly, I think the highlight would be the projects. This is the projects that I had. 3, decent projects, some student dev roles, and yeah, a decent academic performance. All right, so now I'm going to go over some tips and tricks that hopefully you can apply to your first internship search and things I would do differently. So for one, don't stress yourself too much. Be nice to yourself and don't compare yourself to others. And I know this sounds really corny and you probably hear it a lot, but this internship struggle was a struggle. Like it was a struggle for my mental health and for my physical health. For someone who is really goal oriented and I don't really see anything other than the goal, like I don't really care about my effort, I just care about the achievement that I get. It was really stressful not landing these internships, and like I can say it now, like I'm I'm chilling now, but you can see me like 3 months ago. I'm like a groggy person. I'm mad at the world, you know, like it's a bad time. I think what I would do differently is like be nice to myself, and it comes with time. Like it's gonna happen. And obviously you can see on TikTok, if you're like young, you know, CS is cooked. Like CS is cooked. Like don't listen to like don't listen to it too much, because those are like the minority, you know, the people on the internet complaining, r/CS majors, all the doom posts. Those are the small people who are complaining. But there's still a lot of positions opening, and there's still a lot of opportunities to be met. You just gotta constantly improve and always have that improvement mindset. And obviously the second point I would make is improve your resume. And this point is really important. Cover letters are important for small companies, and cover letters are not important for big companies. I mean, though my philosophy when going through cover letters was, if it looked like an opportunity that I thought I had a pretty good chance in, I would actually custom do my cover letter for them. But if it was a really large company, I just slap my name on slap the company name on a default cover letter I had and just threw it out there. I think cover letters, you really have to gauge it. It's hard to say whether they're important or not, but I think for smaller companies, they actually do read them. So yeah, improve your resume, get feedback from peers, get feedback on, you know, Reddit, Discord. There's always people willing to help, and trust me, like, people are willing to help. And don't try to, like, for me, like, don't try to guess what recruiters want on your resume. Ask people who've maybe recruiters themselves, or just people who've gone through that process a lot. You can't just guess. Like, I think my first couple times doing my resume, I'm like, oh yeah, like recruiters love that point. It's like, it's really cool, but in reality, maybe it's just not important. Always look to improve your resume. A third point, and especially for internships, apply early. And this is really, really important too, because these internship opportunities, almost all of them, I would say all of them, they're all on a rolling basis. And what this means is when they find a good candidate, they interview them right away. And when they interview them and they do really well, they give them an offer right away. They don't want this process to be this long. Recruiting for a company, like for a company's perspective, it takes a lot of resources. This is a little anecdote and I'm not too sure, but in my perspective, how I like to view it is that interns are not that important for companies, for a company. Like, they have a lot of big things to worry about, and an intern, like a 4-month internship, is for these interns are not that important to them. So they want to just get these things over with. Well, maybe not over with, but they are not looking for the perfect candidate. They're looking for the first qualified candidate through the door. So get your application in early, get those notifications on. General rule of thumb, I mean, I'm not too sure, but for bigger companies, like the FANG companies, usually they recruit about like maybe 8 to 10 months in advance for like summer positions. So they would start recruiting maybe September to October, November. For local companies, they start about 4 months in advance or prior. So it's very important to get your resume in. Don't slack. Don't be like, okay, after I finish this assignment, like, you really want to prioritize just getting your application out there. Then that's that point. My next point, I mean, I'm sure you can assume, but apply to a lot of positions. In your first internship, this economy, the amount of the scarcity of positions, you really gotta take as many chances as you can. So I would say apply to a lot, because you are not guaranteed you're not guaranteed an interview. Like, I'm sure you've heard that a lot. Just apply to as many as you can. Don't self disqualify yourself if you don't see the requirements that are on your resume. Don't be scared to apply, because you never know, right? I mean, unless it says like only for 4th years and you're a 2nd year, like those maybe, are a little contingent. My next point is gain mentorship and reach out to your network, and be social and be empathetic to the mentors and the people in your network. So this could be because I'm technically in the faculty of business, but your network is really important. And reaching out to people who've done it, or like a couple years older than you that have done it, is really important, because they have like the best understanding of what you're going through right now. Like, if you reach out to people who are working full time, maybe like 10 years in the industry, they kind of forgot what it's like. And maybe the time was different because the economy is different. When they were applying to internships, maybe they just applied to 3 internships and they got one. Or they just don't really know they kind of forgot what the process is like. So I would say, in terms of more timely information, reach out to people who are just a couple years older than you that have pretty good success in their career. My next tip is for interview prep. The industry standard, a lot of people rave about technical interviews and tell you to prepare for technical interviews. And I'm not going to disagree that technical interviews are really important for tech jobs, but I think if you're looking for your first internship and you're not aiming for the sky like Fang, behaviorals are a lot more important than technicals. A lot of my interviews were simply behavioral interviews, and they were just looking for a team fit. Like these smaller companies don't care too much about your prior experience of like your technical experience as much for internships. They're looking for someone who has a team fit and is easy to teach. I would focus more, well, maybe not focus more than technical, but put an emphasis on preparing for your behavioral interviews. Prepare yourself of like keeping composure and answering, those silly questions in a concise manner and actually addressing the question. Eye contact, smile. I know it's like basic things, but you want to impress them just by being likable. Like, even if you might not be the most technically advanced, you are the most personable, and hopefully they'll hire you through, you're the personality hire. Who knows? But technical is really important if, looking for the bigger companies. Still do leak code. Yeah, pretty much it. My last tip, and it worked for me, reach out to your old recruiters and reach out to the people that you've talked to that are hiring. Because like me, I didn't technically, the positions that I have now, I didn't technically apply through a regular portal or anything like that. I just emailed the recruiter and they set me up with an interview. Like, I didn't even know what position I was applying to. I just said I was looking for software developing positions. That's about it. I don't want this video to be too long. You're welcome to comment maybe any questions you have about my process or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, this is my first video, so hopefully I did a good job. Hopefully it's not too long. Thanks for watching. If you made it all the way, I'm surprised because I don't think I was that entertaining. I was like rambling a fuck ton. I'm still rambling. But yeah, hopefully, I don't know, I might post more career related or maybe school related stuff. I have some travel vlogs on my channel, so check that out if you're interested in my Korea travel. I'm going to China next year. All right, I'm done. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed.